Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we have another very cool Mattel figure that has just recently hit stores to take a look at, and as you could probably tell already, especially with the title right there in front of you, this is the Siats Meekerorum, and it is a figure that I've been looking forward to for quite a while, since I first initially had heard that they were going to make one because it's such an incredibly obscure species that I don't know if anyone has tackled previously, so to hear that Mattel was going to make one of these, I was really excited. Such an off-the-wall species for Mattel to create. I am just over the moon happy about this because it's so incredibly cool. As you can probably already tell, this is a massive biters figure. I believe this, the Tarbosaurus, and Sarcosuchus are the three that are out currently from the massive biters figures. So your local Target should probably transition back and forth between these three. Before I go any further with the review, though, I do want to state a huge thank you to John Siculo, who actually sent this to me. He, if you recall, sent me some Snap Squads a little while back for us to review here on the channel, and now he sent over a Siats Meekerorum, so a gigantic thank you to him for acquiring this figure, sending it our way to review here on the channel. Super, super awesome of him to do that. But as you can tell, one interesting aspect of the figure is that it is not a Camp Cretaceous figure, because most of the Jurassic World figures hitting shelves right now are Camp Cretaceous, with the Camp Cretaceous Netflix series about to be landing in a few months, but this one clearly is just a Primal Attack figure, which is okay by me. I don't really mind what label they go under. And then the back of the box here just kind of shows some images of the action feature, and then down here in the corner, we do see that Tarbosaurus and Sarcosuchus that we were just speaking of. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and break this out of its box right now. So here is our Siats Meekerorum, and it looks absolutely beautiful here standing in front of us with no packaging whatsoever associated with it. I really am quite the big fan overall of the sculpt. I think it looks extremely cool, and with having so many of these kind of quills sticking out of the back, it looks very unique, which is one thing I do definitely like about it. I actually also quite like the paint scheme as well. I've heard a few people kind of show some unhappiness about this gray in the back area of the figure, but in person I think it looks pretty nice. It's honestly not as bad as I expected it to be as far as that kind of gray paint there in the back. I definitely agree with a few other people that I've heard state that they probably would have rathered the kind of blue run all the way out here, but I think it looks nice even with the gray, and at least it adds a few different tones of color. We have at least another tone of color, which is exciting to have at least a little bit of color variation to the figure. But I'm really excited to actually take a nice closer look at this, so let's go ahead and check this guy out up close. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt looks really, really nice as far as the scales go. There are just scales everywhere, and all different varying sizes of scales. I really love just looking here at the scales on the lower jaw. That is incredible, incredible work there on the part of Mattel. Gorgeous sculpt work as far as the minute details. And look at how fine the scales get down here on the underside of the lower jaw. Really, really nice looking for sure. Beautiful scale work there, extremely small. And up here on the head, you can again see that the scales are a good bit larger on the upper part of the head. And there's even some large scales here on the lower jaw, but they definitely seem to get a little bit bigger up here. Some really nice blue coloration here that kind of stripes and leaks down onto the face, which I think looks really nice. Beautifully painted green eye with a very nice gloss coat to it. The pupil is the same dark blue that we see in the background there. Let's check out the other eye. Yes, the other eye also looks extremely nicely done. Pretty much perfect and spot on are both eyes, which is definitely some good news. You can see the nostrils sculpted out up there in the front of the snout. If we come up here to the top of the head, some more really nice scaling. We also have kind of a crest-like area, similar to like an Allosaurus somewhat, up there on the top of the head. If we take a look at the inside of the mouth, we have a very nice gloss coat, of course, in there with some really nice realistic coloration. And you can actually see that the tongue is beautifully textured. You can see that they're really, really nicely textured. Absolutely gorgeous sculpt work on the part of Mattel, even on the tongue on the inside of the mouth. And you can also see that the teeth look really nice, and they kind of have almost like an interlocking tooth right here that kind of comes up onto the upper jaw from the lower jaw, which looks really cool and is definitely a good bit different from most other Mattel figures, so I do like that as well. Then as we start to lead down the body, you can see those quills kind of popping up up here on the top of the head, and it looks extremely cool because of those. And you can also see some really nice scales in between those quills. Once we come down here under the body, you can now see a few scoots kind of appearing as we run down the neck, along with some really nice scales again. A little bit of skin folding going on here. As we come down into the body, you can see the throat here, actually really nicely displayed. We get down into the stomach, and look at how really cool that scaling is here in the stomach. Very reptilian, almost like a snake-like scaling in the stomach region and the chest region of the Siats. Once we come back up here into the body, you can again see more of those kind of scoots or osteoderms that run along the body. Really nice sculpt work here in the stomach region, and the dinosaur actually has some pretty decent girth to the stomach, so it is nice and healthy and well fed. The arms also have some really nice scaling, and the arms almost have like a crocodilian type of a look to them as far as the scaling goes, I think. So it's really cool how they have so many different aspects and so many different variations of scales included in this figure, like having large, almost looking like, what you would expect to be scaling on a dinosaur, and then you have like snake-like scaling under here, and then almost crocodile-like scaling here on the arms. It's just really, really cool if you ask me. Nicely sculpted out hands. You can see a beautiful scoot-like appearance down the fingers, but unfortunately no fingernail paint, which is just something we're kind of used to at this point. You can also see that this blue kind of leaks down the body and continues to do that until we get right about here in the hip region, and then it tapers off. You can see more of the quills up here on the top of the back, and some more really nice scales again displayed quite beautifully. And you can also pick up on some osteoderms or some scoots up here on the back as well. And the scoots continue to run right over the hip area. As we come down into the leg, you can see the scoots once again here in the thigh. You can also pick up on some really nice muscle tone, very large bulging calf muscles as well. There's the kneecap slightly present, and you can see this grayish paint now picking up and kind of becoming the flashy paint that we have right here. We have blue, and now it becomes like this gray, and that leads out onto the tail there. As we move down into the foot sculpt is gorgeous. Very nice scoots down the toes once again, and beautiful fine scaling down on the feet. Nicely painted nails with a nice black coloration, and they are quite beautifully glossed. They don't have, for some reason, any paint on the underside of the nails. I don't know why that is. But there is the Jurassic Facts app code if you would like to add this to your collection. And then moving back up here into the tail area, you can see now kind of like a little bit of a bumpier appearance to the scales. So now they have more of like an osteoderm-like appearance to a lot of the scales, mixed with some nice like regular scales, but then there's also those osteoderms as well as kind of scoots that run down the tail, which is really cool. There's just so much variation there included, and you do have that nice kind of grayish coloration that stripes out to about here, and then it ends, and the rest of the tail is just like this yellowish coloration that is the primary body color. I would have liked the gray to actually run the entire length of the tail, but I mean, it looks nice the way it is. It just would have looked a little better that way. And then looking at the opposing side again, everything pretty much is probably going to look the same for the most part over here as to what we had seen on the previous side, because most of the Mattel figures usually do. You're not really going to see too much more movement or anything shown on one side as opposed to the other, which means, again, that the sculpt looks beautiful on both sides. Really, really off the charts gorgeous sculpt work on the part of Mattel. They continue to impress me so much with every single release, and this is yet another one that, as far as the sculpt work goes, I am really quite blown away. I am shocked, however, to see that there's kind of like a seam here. I mean, you can always see the seam here because there's articulation in the ankles, but there's actually a little gap right here, which is really weird. You don't normally see that on the Mattel figures, or at least I haven't really noticed it, which does definitely have me concerned about how this figure will hold up over time with that, because I feel like that could be something that could become a problem with it being sort of loose right there. But other than that, again, really, really nice sculpt work, beautiful paint application, and just an overall really cool Siats Meekerorum figure. So as far as a size goes on our Siats Meekerorum, from the tail to the head, you are looking at right around the 14-inch range, or about 36 centimeters for a length. And for a height, I feel like it's a pretty natural height right here, so we'll see it come in at about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters, somewhere in that range. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our Siats Meekerorum. And you can definitely tell next to these figures that the Siats is, of course, right there in the same range as all the other massive biters, but also shows you that the Siats figure is quite large. And that is one thing I really love about the Mattel line, is that they actually create a lot of large figures. you do get quite a bit of size in the Mattel line. Of course, not with the smaller ones like the attack packs, like our Kilovosaurus here or Robert Muldoon, but there just in general is a lot of larger figures in the Mattel line, and that's one thing I definitely do love, and this Siats fits right there in that range of larger figures. As far as articulation goes, we of course have articulation in the neck. We also have articulation in the jaw, and that's because both of those are part of the action feature. We do have articulation in the arms forward and back and out away from the body, and then the legs, of course, forward and back, and the ankle we were just talking about. We do have the swivel articulation there, and then articulation in the tail, but that again also is because of the action feature, which you can now see the Siats kind of disagreeing with me and shaking his head no. But you're wrong, Siats. That is part of the action feature. And to show you the action feature, we're going to take our Siats right here. We're going to push the button, because once you push the button, it chomps the jaws, and then you can use the tail and twist it to kind of control the head and move the head and neck area around and have him chomp and attack whatever it is exactly that you want your Siats to attack and kill, which is pretty much the same action feature we've had a few times with like the Control and Conquer Carnotaurus, the Sarcosuchus, and Tarbosaurus. So I really do actually quite love that action feature. It's definitely one of my favorite Mattel action features so far, so definitely a good one if you ask me to include on this figure. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Primal Attack Siats Meekerorum is an awesome figure, really nice looking overall. A beautiful sculpt with so many different varying sizes of scales. And one thing, like I had stated already, that I really love about the actual sculpt is that there's so many different versions of scales included with that, like kind of like a snake-like scaling on the underside, and then you have almost a crocodilian-like scaling on the arms, and then some very nice larger scales on the face and upper part of the body along the back. And then once you get to the tail, you almost have like kind of like a bumpy osteoderm-like appearance to the scales mixed with regular scales, and then some osteoderms included within. So there's just a ton of really nice fine detailing included in this figure, which is extremely cool if you ask me. The paintwork is also quite nice. We do have that very nice yellowish coloration that is the primary body color, and then you have a nice darker blue that kind of runs down over the body and leaks down, almost like you took some paint and dumped it over his back and now it's leaking down, which does create a really cool design, and I definitely do like the way they've done that. The lower jaw also almost looks like it's a different shade of coloration than the upper jaw and the rest of the body, with a little bit of a darker look to that. There's also some blue speckles that show up throughout the figure, as well as Mattel kind of includes that kind of like spots, that spotting type of a look on their figures. And this one has kind of like a dark blue spotting going on in certain areas. It's just ever so faint and almost hard to pick up on, but it is there, and it looks really quite cool when you do take notice to it. And then you also have that kind of light gray that stripes all over the place in the back there on the tail and then down onto the thigh, which again I agree with a few other people that had stated that it probably would have looked better if we had just stuck to the dark blue, or maybe even a different shade of dark blue. It's just kind of weird to go from a dark blue to a light gray, but at the same time, I don't think it looks that bad. It could definitely be worse, so I do like it, but I would have liked it more had we just included like a different variation of a darker blue or something with the figure. Really nicely sculpted and painted mouth as well. All the teeth are painted and sculpted individually, so that makes it more impressive when you actually get in there and take a look at it. And then the tongue and everything on the inside is really nicely textured and beautifully done also. Really nice action features, which is pretty much your standard Mattel action feature at this point for a larger dinosaur figure, and I'm okay with it because I think it's a really cool aspect as far as like a playability goes, but also just in general of kind of creating some sort of way to display your figure. It does open quite a few options for that too, and in general the action feature is just really cool if you ask me. You also have that beautiful articulation that you know you always get with every Mattel figure, which is always a good addition to any figure, is articulation, and Mattel absolutely has mastered the articulation of their figures, I would say. And on top of all of that, I think the cherry on top is the fact that the eyes are beautifully placed and there is no sloppiness or any type of quality control issues with the eyes as well. So really fantastic figure overall. The only thing I'm a little concerned about are the swivels in the ankles, how there's kind of that gap there, but hopefully that won't play into any type of an issue in the future. But otherwise, an absolutely awesome figure. I do want to say thank you one more time to John Sakulo for sending this over to us here to review on the channel. And I also want to tell you guys to head to your local Target, and you'll probably be able to acquire one of these there because they have started to show up pretty much everywhere at this point, except for, of course, my Target because I never get anything. But luckily, I have awesome viewers like you guys that will help to acquire things for me sometimes when we want to get them up here and reviewed on the channel. So we do still have the opportunity to look at this here. And again, make sure you head to your local Target. Make sure you pick up this awesome Siats Meekerorum from Mattel. And make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.